Okay, we are live on YouTube. Good evening. Welcome to District 17's annual town hall meeting. The Senate and House have already convened. Sometimes we do it before we join. We need to mute this. Okay, I think we fixed that. Okay, sorry about that. The legislature reconvened a week and a half ago, so we have lots of stuff to share with you, and we are also eager to hear what's on your mind. I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. Let's just the legislators introduce themselves, and then I will recognize the elected officials and candidates. Each of the four of us will talk a little bit about our legislative priorities, and then we will take questions. With that, I'm going to ask you again, sorry, if your first and last name aren't in the chat, in your box, please do that, the upper right corner of your own box. You can rename yourself. All right, sorry, Kumar, go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Hi, I'm Kumar Barve, but you knew that. I'm the chair of the Environment and Transportation Committee, at least until I get fired.
Jim?
Hi, everyone. Jim Gilchrist. Good to see you all out here tonight. I look forward to the meeting.
Excellent. Julie?
Good evening, everybody. Julie Polakovich-Carr, proud to be your third delegate. Nice to see so many smiling and familiar faces tonight.
All right. Well, thank you all. We are going to get started here. Before we do, I'm going to recognize the elected officials and candidates who are here. Let me just mention that a few candidates we are giving literally 30 seconds to introduce themselves, and those are just going to be statewide folks, countywide folks, and District 17 folks. And countywide folks is just going to be county executive, just to be clear about that. Okay, so first we have Aruna Miller, candidate for Lieutenant Governor, running with Westmore. Brooke Learman, Delegate Brooke Learman. I'm going to come back through and let you speak. Brooke Learman running for Comptroller. County Executive, I see David Blair here. I believe that Tom Hucker is going to be joining us as well. Our County Council member, Sydney Katz, is here. From the fabulous city of Gaithersburg, we have council members, Jim McNulty and Lisa Henderson. I don't know whether anyone else has joined us. District 17 candidates. We have Joe Vogel and Joe DiMaria in the Battle of the Joes. We have Max Wee, who's running for sheriff to succeed the wonderful Darren Popkin. And state's attorney, I believe we are going to have two candidates, the incumbent John McCarthy and the challenger Tom DeGonia. I don't know whether either of them is in the room yet. I also want to recognize Democratic, District 17 Democratic leaders, Ellie Shaw Babidia and Steve Fisher, who are just so wonderful in their support for everything that happens in District 17. I want to mention that we have former council members, city council members, Virginia Onley and Dolly Kildee in the room, Margie Graff, the CEO of the Rockville Chamber of Commerce, who does great work, and Gaithersburg's wonderful city manager, Tanisha Briley, along with Dennis Enslinger and Tom Lonergan, who works with us in Annapolis.
I think we also have Jennifer Hosey here. I think I saw
Jennifer Hosey from the Central Committee was on my list and I didn't get there. Sorry, thank you. Okay, so the people who will be speaking very briefly, and I literally, Neil Harris is here from the Gaithersburg City Council also. Thank you, Neil, for all you do. We don't see your face yet. So 30 seconds, we're gonna kick off with the wonderful Aruna Miller. You may begin.
Thank you very much, Senator Kagan. Good evening, District 17. I'm Aruna Miller, candidate for Lieutenant Governor for the Westmore for Governor ticket. For those of you that may not know me, I'm a former Maryland State delegate from District 15, which includes the areas of Potomac, Germantown, Clarksburg, and Poolesville. Westmore and I are deeply grateful to receive the endorsement of your representatives, both Senator Kagan and Chairman Barve. And in the coming months, we hope to earn your support. To learn more about the Moore Miller ticket.
Thank you.
Westmore.
Okay. Thank you, Aruna. Great to have you here. Proud to support you. Our candidates, all four of us, have endorsed Delegate Brooke Learman to become Maryland's next comptroller. Delegate Learman, you may begin.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good evening. Thanks to the great District 17 team for having me on and their friendship and support. And so great to see so many friends and supporters, including Councilman Katz and others. I'm Brooke Learman. I'm a civil rights and disability rights attorney. I'm a mom, a two-term state delegate, and I'm running to be your next state comptroller. I only have 30 seconds, so I can't explain what a comptroller is, but I'm excited to bring a bold new vision to that office to really make sure we're tackling the challenges in front of us. So I'd love to talk with all of you. We're doing meet and greets around the state, and I put my website in the chat. Nina and many others on this are already volunteering, and I'd love to be involved with you. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Candidates for county executive. David Blair, I see here, and he is at his son's hockey match, I think. So he has stepped out in the freezing cold to be with us. David, are you here?
I am, Senator Kagan. Thank you. I've been at the ice rink here in Rockville most of the day, and I would say to Team 17, we need more ice rinks here. But all kidding aside, I just wanted to take a moment to just thank you all for making the huge sacrifices that you do on our behalf. I can't imagine what it's like to be in Annapolis for 4 months, and I'll see you up there. I'll be up there many times and hope to get to chat with each of you personally. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you, David. Wow, 7 seconds to spare. Awesome. I do not see any of the other county executive candidates in the room yet. If they come later, maybe we can squeeze them in somewhere or whatever. So next we're going to hear 30 seconds from our own council member, Sydney Katz. Welcome. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you for allowing me to say a few words. As many of you know, I'm somebody that always tries to come in under budget, so I will try my best to do that. I am Sydney Katz. I am running for re-election for the 3rd District of Montgomery County, for the Montgomery County Council. And I want to take just a few seconds to literally thank each and every one of our delegates, especially our D17 delegates, for everything that you do. We could not. Senator, excuse me, I meant delegation. Thank you, and I knew you'd point that out. Thank you, Chair. But we could not do what we need to do without you and with our great federal partners as well. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Sydney. Appreciate it. When they're saying nice things about us, I guess they get an extra 3 seconds, right? All right. And lastly, since we are the District 17 delegation, there, as you all know, I'm sure that after 16 years of loyal service, Delegate Jim Gilchrist has announced that he will not be seeking re-election, and there are 2 candidates who are in the room who are seeking to be his successor. I'm going to do it in alphabetical order. So Joe DiMaria, welcome. You get 30 seconds.
Thank you, Senator. I must first let me say I think we've been well served by our legislators from District 17. And if Delegate Gilchrist were not stepping down, I would not be running. I know many of you I don't know. So feel free to visit my Facebook page or on Twitter, or you can give me a call, and I'll even give you my number right now, 301-240-0947. I would love to chat and talk politics with each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. And Joe Vogel.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Vogel, running for the House of Delegates here in my hometown to serve this community that means so much to me and to build on the progress that Delegate Gilchrist and the rest of the delegation have accomplished in Annapolis. I'll send more information in the chat, but really grateful to have you all here and to be here tonight.
Look at that. 10 seconds left over. All right. And I want to acknowledge that the Gaithersburg Council members, Rob Wu and Neil Harris, are in the room. I think I already said Neil, but Rob Wu is here too. All right. With that, we will start. Each of the legislators will take about 10 minutes. And so I'd like to begin with our chairman, Kumar Barve. Please begin.
Thank you very much. First, I really would like to say that once again, what a great honor it's been for me to serve you as a member of the Maryland House of Delegates since you first elected me. And Yikes,
Seriously.
1990. During that time, I've had a chance to serve as the elected chairman of the Montgomery County House delegation, as the Democratic Majority Leader, and most recently as the chairman of the Environment and Transportation Committee. Now, I could literally spend hours talking about everything that we're going to do, but let me just focus on three things. One that's of supreme importance, and others that are also very important, but perhaps fly under the radar at times. The first issue is climate solutions. And I've been working very closely with my Senate counterpart, Senator Paul Pinsky, who's the chair of the committee that Senator Kagan is vice chair of, the Environment and Health Committee. And over the course of 5 months, we've drafted a series of proposals that are going to be comprehensive and bold. And let me just go through some of the major elements, not all the details. It's very detailed. But first of all, we're going to be proposing that the state of Maryland reduce by 60% its greenhouse gas emissions as an economy. Second, we're going to be enacting regulations for commercial building energy efficiency. Third, we're also going to be enacting regulations for state building and school energy efficiency. And finally, not finally, actually, we're also going to be mandating the transition to full electrification for vehicles, which means cars, light duty vehicles, trucks. And we're also finally going to be enacting legislation to really make the state of Maryland make an effort to include green procurement, especially in areas of green cement and other green procurement in the course of building buildings and procuring goods and services for the state of Maryland. This is very complex, as I've said, and I'd be happy to answer any specific questions that you have. But let me just focus on a couple of key principles. Number one, we are going to establish as a key principle the notion of full electrification of commercial and state buildings in the future as they are built. The reason for this is really quite logical and straightforward. As the grid gets cleaner, so will all the buildings, vehicles, and appliances that use electricity. And so it's the most effective way to clean up our economy without having to burden people with constant decision-making day to day to day. So that is the basic principle that really energizes and informs what we're going to be doing with respect to climate solutions. And one other thing I do want to mention, we can't just wait until the last minute to do this. We have to actually get this passed earlier in the session than what we ordinarily would. And the reason for that's pretty simple. This is the fourth year of a four-year term. And if the governor vetoes a bill after we adjourn, then constitutionally, we can't override that veto. We have to get this on the governor's desk with time to spare so that if he makes the decision to veto the bill, we'll have an opportunity to override him. Second, although this isn't quite as earth-shattering, it's no less important, is the behavior of drivers and dirt bikers on our roads. Now, again, not the most important thing, but recently, all four of us, and I think every elected official on this call will bear this out. We've been receiving a lot of complaints about unsafe driving, road racing, loud noises in our neighborhoods. And in many of the cities in the state of Maryland, there have been persistent complaints of young people on dirt bikes tying up intersections, popping wheelies. And this is something that really does need to be addressed. And our committee is going to spend a lot of time going into that because the roads have to be accessible and safe for pedestrians and for bicyclists and for drivers. And right now, the behavior on our roads is spiraling out of control. We want to put together a comprehensive set of standards for the entire state of Maryland. Finally, of course, we have a lot of environmental topics that we have in the Environment and Transportation Committee. But one thing in particular that I think we have come to discover is that plastic recycling has failed in the United States of America. Less than 8%, roughly 8% of the plastic that we consume is actually successfully recycled. And it's because chemically speaking, it's just very, very difficult and impossible to recycle. And so we will have a number of pieces of legislation coming before us. One in particular, if you noticed on plastic products, you'll see a little number with like 3 chasing arrows, and that's meant to make you think that that product is recyclable. Well, unless it has a 1 or a 2, unless it has those 2 numbers, it's recyclable. Otherwise, if it doesn't, if it's 3 through 9 or whatever, that's basically garbage. It cannot chemically be recycled in anything approximating a affordable manner. And just for the show and tell portion of this, some of you guys are probably using this kind of shaving product. It comes in a plastic container. It's called Cremo. And you know what? I'm going to stop using this because this container is completely unrecyclable. On the other hand, the old-fashioned metal can is, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got an actual little recycling emblem there. And it is actually recyclable because it's steel. And so from now on, I'm going to stop using this and I'm going to start going back to using this because, you know, the fact of the matter is this will either be, if it's in Montgomery County, it'll be incinerated in the incinerator, or anywhere else in the state of Maryland, it'll end up in a landfill, which I suppose is a form of carbon sequestration. This, on the other hand, can be recycled infinitely. Metal can be recycled very, very easily. And so that's an example of the kind of thing that I think we as citizens and as state legislators have to be aware of. Now, I'm going to stop right there. I believe I have 3 minutes remaining, so that means Cheryl is going to have to mail me a brownie or something. But
ironically, I made them today.
Right.
Actually.
And so anyway, there are so many things I could talk about, but I won't. I'd rather hear from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delegate Barve. Great, very, very informative. Delegate Gilchrist, you're up next.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. And it's good to see everyone. You know, as Cheryl said, we did just start session, you know, a week ago, 10 days ago. And once again, we're doing it rather remotely. The House in particular, we've only been in on the House floor just once because of COVID. And let me just say, you know, today I decided I wanted to get a COVID test, not because I wasn't feeling well, but, you know, we're going to be going in again, and it's good to get a test every once in a while. So I got online, and there's at St. Martin's in Gaithersburg, they have a test site. So you go. So I went there. And then it was actually across the street from the church. If you're using that one, just so you know, it's like in a field. And I, you know, filled out the form and got, you know, the swab taken from me. And they said it would be 3 to 5 days before I got my answer. And so if you're planning to get, you know, one of those sort of longer tests, not the rapid tests, right now, there is a lot of demand, and 3 to 5 days, you know, by the, you know, if it takes 5 days, I'll feel like I'm ready for another one. And but it is important to get tested when you can and to follow the health guidance on these things. So, but just a warning that it can take a long time. I do want to thank everybody. And as Cheryl said, I've decided not to run for re-election. And, you know, I remember when I was first elected back in 06 and 07, we had a special session because we had a, you know, real serious budget problem, and we had to solve it. Governor O'Malley was our governor, and we came in for a special session, and we spent a month, and we tried to really provide a long-range plan to put the state on solid footing. And some of you might remember I put in a bill that was extraordinarily unpopular. In fact, it filled up Lawyers Mall in Annapolis with opponents. and I was walking up the State House steps, and they saw me walking up, and I heard from the crowd, not in a positive way, but it seems like a long time ago. But it was one of the things we've done, the last 4 terms to put the state on good footing in the long term. And one of the things we've been doing all this time is we've been working on the Chesapeake Bay. Governor O'Malley was governor, my first 2 terms. Yeah, I've been reading this book. It's not Pirates of the Caribbean, it's Pirates of the Chesapeake. And back in the 1880s, Maryland started their oyster police. And at the time, the Chesapeake Bay supplied like half of the world's oysters. It's just amazing. And about 15 years ago, we got down to 25,000 bushels. It's just been a complete reversal in that time. And the very first oyster laws were because of overfishing. And that was back in the 1800s when we were still getting, literally millions and millions of bushels out of the Chesapeake Bay. It's just incredible to think about. So we've been working on, a whole range of fishery issues, but with, Chairman Barve, with the Senate, with Department of Natural Resources, we've made a lot of progress on oyster sanctuaries, on protecting the blue crabs, on protecting the rockfish in the bay. I don't know that we'll ever get back the soft clam industry and some of the other industries, but we're really focused on it now, and have been for a long time. And it's been an honor to be able to work on some of these critical Maryland issues, because we have a great state, and you should all know that when you go out to Deep Creek Lake, the state actually owns the bottom of the lake, of Deep Creek Lake, and there's a state park out there. Of course, we have Swallow Falls State Park, and it's just a wonderful state, and it's been a great honor to be able to work on some of these natural resources issues. You should also know, when you go to the Eastern Shore, if you go to Crisfield, Maryland, the Department of Natural Resources owns and operates that marina in Crisfield. And so if you go to the annual clam bake, or if you visit the Eastern Shore, that's just one of the things that we do. So I do want to talk about some of what's coming up this session. And during this last interim, former Governor Paris Glendenning was asked to chair a committee on state parks. And he did, and they looked at state parks in depth in a number of meetings. This last year, about 12 parks had to be closed down because there were just too many visitors. COVID increased the number of visitors by 50%. But even aside from that, we've doubled since 2013. There are backlogs and maintenance. It's 140,000 acres in our state parks. One thing they looked at, and we're going to talk about over the coming time, is protecting. Joe Biden set a goal of 30% of land by 2030. So we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at what we can do for our state parks, and it'll be an honor to keep working on it. And the work won't end, as we know, because it's been going on for over a century, and the work won't end. It'll continue with my predecessors and with my successors. So it's been a great honor. And let me hand it back to Senator Kagan, and she can continue to introduce the agenda.
Thank you very much, Delegate Gilchrist. And you guys have to know that if it comes to oysters and someone needs to know what's going on, Mr. Oyster is Delegate Gilchrist for so many years now. So Jim, thank you for your awareness of the Bay and helping to safeguard our waterways for economic development, tourism, jobs, and yummy fish that we all enjoy eating. So thank you for that. Before we go to Delegate Polakovich Carr and me, I want to recognize that the amazing Joan Kleinman who for very many years served as U.S. Senator, Chris Van Hollen's chief of staff, and recently took a well-deserved step away, and we're going to miss having her as our right arm. So Joan, thank you for being here tonight. It's amazing that you're still coming in District 17 Town Hall. So thank you. And I thought I recognized Delegate Virginia Onley, former Rockville delegate, not delegate, sorry, former Rockville City Council member, but in case I didn't, I'm doing that. And former school board member and my dear friend, Jill Ortman Faust just came in the room. Jill, thank you for all you do on education. And Council Member Tom Hucker has arrived. So I'm going to give Council Member his 30 seconds, and then we will go to Delegate Polakovich-Carr and me, if that's okay. Tom, if you're still here, we're giving everybody, not everybody, selective people, 30 seconds. And if you're here.
What an honor, Senator. Thank you so much. I don't want to interrupt the proceedings, but sorry, I had a little issue with the link, but so you all are so lucky to have this all-star team representing you in District 17. And I can tell you all of us on the council are really committed to doing whatever we can to make sure you have all the support you need so you can continue to represent us so well in Annapolis. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Council Member. And he was kind enough to use his whole 30 seconds saying nice things about us, but he didn't mention that he is a candidate for county executive. And so I will be his filler in the blanker here. So, okay.
Thanks, Cheryl.
All right. Thank you, Council Member. Good to see you as always. With that, let's go to Delegate Polakovich-Carr, who's doing amazing stuff in Annapolis. Julie?
Thank you, Cheryl. Well, hello again, everyone. I have to say the first 3 years of my term in Annapolis has just flown by. Seeing the pictures recently of my swearing in January 2019, and it does not feel like 3 years ago. I continue to serve on the House Ways and Means Committee, and additionally, over the last few years, have started to accrue some very minor leadership roles, including as vice chair of the Montgomery County Democratic Caucus, vice chair of the Legislative Review Committee for the Latino Caucus, and very recently was elected by my colleagues in the General Assembly as secretary of the Transit Caucus. So Kumar and Jim have started to preview some of the issues that will be coming up this session, and I wanted to first start with that theme before addressing a few of my own bills. Of course, 2020 was the year that we completed the census as Marylanders, as a nation, and so we are going through the redistricting process. During the special session we had in December, we adopted the new congressional map. We are in the process as the General Assembly of adopting the new state legislative map. I will note, because Rockville and Gaithersburg have been the two fastest growing municipalities in the state, and we have seen a lot of population growth in our part of Montgomery County, but as the county as a whole, there are some minor changes that are proposed in the draft map that is out for state legislative districts. So in fact, 2 precincts that are currently in District 17 are proposed to go to adjoining District 39. And also, interestingly, because Montgomery County has seen a lot of population growth, we potentially are going to have a 9th state legislative district in the northern part of Montgomery County that would be split between Montgomery and Howard counties. So that's the potential for actually to get a 9th senator for the county and 2 additional delegates. Montgomery County already is the largest delegation. This would further shore that up. In terms of issues that are coming up this session, paid family leave has been an issue that's been around for a few years. The advocates and stakeholders who have been working on this issue really seem especially energized this year to getting that across the finish line and to ensuring that working Marylanders can get paid time off when they have a new child or need to care for an ailing loved one, and that both employees and employers are paying in a small amount, but together through an insurance pool, it makes it affordable for those folks to be able to take time off when they need it to care for a loved one. Cannabis legalization is another issue that's been around for several years, but seems to have more energy behind it this year. There's a little bit of a difference in thought between the House and Senate in terms of what the approach is. On the House side, Speaker Adrian Jones has committed to passing a ballot referendum question to put the question forward to voters this November about whether or not cannabis should be legalized. The Senate's taking a little bit different approach of actually putting together an implementation bill that would just straight up legalize cannabis. There's a lot of details, though, in terms of implementation that are still getting figured out. We're not quite sure which of those bills is going to be the one that wins out and which approach will go forward, but something else to watch. Reproductive rights, I think, is on a lot of people's mind, given the cases pending in the Supreme Court, likely to be several pieces of legislation on that front. And then additionally, just continuing to respond to the pandemic. The legislature has passed bills in recent years, really since the start of the pandemic, to try to address some of these issues, everything from telehealth to how the schools are responding. And I think we'll continue to see that issue be at the forefront of this session. In terms of my own work, I have a full plate again of 18 pieces of legislation. And I'll have to say that it's been tough when people ask me what I'm working on this session to kind of describe it in a short way, besides using the phrase hodgepodge, which doesn't sound that great. But I do have a number of bills related to elections, including some reforms to campaign finance reform. This year, I'm sponsoring the local bill to allow Montgomery County to adopt ranked choice or approval voting. That's a bill that Senator Kagan had sponsored a few years ago. There's a few of us in the Montgomery County delegation that have shared this responsibility of sharing that legislation. I am continuing to work on roadway safety issues. Probably the bill I've been most proud of sponsoring and passing in my time in the legislature was for Maryland to become the 4th state to adopt Vision Zero, which is a goal of no deaths or serious injuries on our roadways, whether that's someone driving in a vehicle or riding in a vehicle, walking or biking. Our infrastructure really should be designed in a way to account for human error. And when crashes happen, they shouldn't be deadly. That legislation passed. It's been in effect for a few years, but unfortunately, the pace of change, I would say, at the state level has been a little slow. And unfortunately, state roadways really are the most dangerous and deadly roadways in Maryland. So this session, I'm coming back with a piece of follow-up legislation that would have the state highway administration actually do a more in-depth study whenever a pedestrian or bicyclist is killed on a state roadway, to try to figure out, okay, what are the safety deficiencies and what infrastructure improvements are needed to really address those safety deficiencies, and to put them out there publicly so that people know, so that there's more accountability. Let me flag just 2 other bills. I'm working on a new affordable housing bill. There was a very comprehensive study that came out about a year ago from the state that was looking at the affordable housing needs across Maryland. And we're about 85,000 affordable housing units short statewide. And that's a number that's projected to double over the next decade. So there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of ways that we can address that issue. I'm looking at one part of it, which is reuse of state-owned properties. And especially when the state has a building or undeveloped land that's no longer needed, to actually finding and identifying those properties that could be suitable for affordable housing, and then allowing for that land or property to be donated or sold for reuse as affordable housing. And finally, another new bill I'm working on for this session has to do with unemployment benefits. It shouldn't seem like it should be controversial, but when the federal government is paying for extra unemployment benefits, like what happened during the pandemic, like what happened during the Great Recession, it's basically free money to states, to their unemployment trust funds, and to folks who are unemployed and who need additional weeks of unemployment. So you'd think every state would want to take advantage of that free federal money. But unfortunately, Maryland was a state where we stopped bringing in the money. We actually cut people off from extra weeks of unemployment benefits that other states were continuing to provide free of charge, in essence, because the federal government was paying the bill. So this is kind of forward-thinking legislation to make sure we're not in this situation again, so that when, unfortunately, unemployment is very high and the federal government's paying for extra weeks of unemployment benefits, that Marylanders get the benefit. With that, I will stop there and turn it over to Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Delegate Blakovich-Carr, Delegate Gilchrist, Delegate Barve, and again to all of you who are here. I keep neglecting to recognize that County Council at-large candidate Scott Goldberg is in the room. And thank you, Scott, for tweeting. And that was my reminder. So I hope you all will feel free to tweet or post or Instagram any of this. So now it's my turn. And I'm going to start by recognizing my staff, because all the work that any of us get done is truly thanks to our wonderful staff. So my Julie mentioned ranked choice voting. After 3 years, my chief of staff, Ryan Kirby, went to the national level to work on ranked choice voting, which, as she said, is an issue that I've sponsored and cared about and been engaged with. So he's going to now do that full-time professionally. And Abby Snyder, after 2 years doing legislative and communication stuff, is now my chief of staff. She's doing an amazing job. And also in the room are Rachel Apfelbaum, Jessica Damiani, Susan Burkett, James Sanborn, Matthew Kiviat, I think, is joining on. He had a conflict, but we have interns and staff and folks supporting our work. And so just want to recognize them. I am going to share screen because, speaking of staff, we have a great PowerPoint here to highlight some of the work that I'm doing. So I'm going to just move this. Hopefully, Abby, that shows up correctly in the YouTube. Let me do this. So I'm all over social media. I have 5 Facebook pages, 2 Twitter accounts, 2 YouTube channels, and an Instagram page. I have a podcast now. I have all that, and I do it all myself. No one else has any of the passwords. So check me out on Instagram, Twitter, and elsewhere. My new website, which I will tell you about in a second, COVID-19 has just been this intractable, frustrating journey for all of us. And but I do hope that you are all vaxxed and boosted, and I hope you are staying safe and masked and being prudent. It has been a long journey, and hopefully we will see the end of it before too long. The county council has done a good job with partnering. I got to give a special shout out again to Sydney Katz, who was helping some constituents get easier access to higher end treatment because of their age and vulnerability. Unemployment insurance. The Hogan administration has done a terrible job for 2 years now at trying to get people the unemployment benefits that they have earned. And I have to say that Abby Snyder, my chief of staff now, just has a magic wand, and she has been able to solve some of the really most challenging months and months and months of not getting their unemployment insurance benefits. And even like the day before someone was going to get evicted, the day before, I mean, just some of these challenges. And we've been able to do that. If you know any friends, neighbors, or colleagues who are not getting their unemployment insurance, we do have kind of easier access. We have backdoor access to folks who pay attention to us. Don't let people wait on holds for hours on end trying to get a person to answer their phone. We can help you. Make sure they live in District 17. If not, any legislator will try to do the best they can. But I can tell you the 4 of us have been doing some good stuff. You all have heard me talk about Next Generation 911 for 8 years now, and for 4 years I have chaired a statewide commission. My work has been in memory of my friend and former Rockville Council candidate and activist, environmental activist, Carl Henn. He was one of 3 people who have died in District 17 when 911 failed. And Carl was struck by lightning. 911 was overloaded, and people were calling and couldn't get through because it was busy. No family should have a loss if it's avoidable, and we can get police, fire, or paramedics. We have passed 11 bills so far that puts Maryland at the forefront nationally on Next Gen 911. I hope you all have seen, and I hope you're reading the emails that we work so hard to send every week during session. But you call if you can, call 911. But if you can't, text to 911. On August 20th, 2020, we all went live. All 24 jurisdictions in the state went live with text to 911. That was really kind of amazing, actually. So make sure that folks know about that. I have 4 environmental bills this year, and I can talk about that. We're starting to have hearings and all that. I think I mentioned I have 6 bills this year on 911. We've already had 2 of those hearings. We tried to early file for early hearings, and so we're getting our stuff moving forward more quickly. I have 3 consumer protection bills. One of those is being heard this week. Those have been really tough to pass, and that's because there's not a fancy lobbyist out there speaking out for the consumer. So try to watch my emails for information about those. And if you want to reach out or use social media to get the word out so somebody knows that people care about this, that would be great. Election procedures. I have 4 bills. They are all emergency bills because they were all supposed to pass last year when we had lots of time. Now we have an election this year, as you know, and we've got some modest bills that we really must have in place, new laws, before the primary in June. And so we have 4 bills. They are all being heard on Wednesday. I am hoping that they will be voted on very quickly in the Senate and in the House so they can move to the governor's desk. Unlike normal bills, as soon as they move to the governor's desk, if the governor signs it, it becomes law that day. And the biggest, most important one of those, Delegate Polakovich-Carr, is sponsoring it in the House. And that is going to be about procurement and funding, who pays for stuff related to elections. So Julie and I are hoping to move that forward in a quick way. I always say that I fancy myself to be the senator for the nonprofit sector. I have 4 bills for the nonprofit sector, including a really exciting bill to have a revolving loan fund for nonprofits to be able to have solar roofs or geothermal access. A lot of times, while they're focused on their mission, they don't have a lot of cash flow, but they really want to do the right thing to address the climate crisis. And so by being able to give them some front money to help them to do the right thing, they're going to be able to repay it and save money to make sure that they can continue to do their mission while also making a difference for the environment. But wait, there's more. I think Meredith Jacobs is in the room. Jewish Women International and Rachel Afblom on my staff have been working together for Resilience Fund for survivors. A lot of times, in addition to physical or emotional abuse, there's also financial devastation that comes with abuse. And so we want to help these women and men, but mostly women, to get back on their feet, to be able to get a new job, to rent an apartment, or be able to move forward and support themselves. Delegate Jared Solomon from the district right next door and I are bringing back, if there's one toilet, it makes no sense to have a women's room and a men's room and have long lines at the women's room and have an empty stall in the men's room. So if there's one toilet, we think it should just say bathroom or restroom. It works for people who are transgender. It works for people with disabilities. It works for people who are changing diapers for a little one. It just makes sense. And so it is law in Baltimore, DC, New York, and many other places. Hopefully we will get it done in the state of Maryland. On Tuesday, my bill that I'm working on with Delegate Charkoudian from Silver Spring, Tacoma Park District, banning cat deknuckling. So you've heard of declawing, which is what people normally call it, but it is actually, it's not just like trimming a fingernail. It actually cuts off all the way the first knuckle. It's very painful for the cat. And because it's so painful to walk on, they may limp, they may not use the litter box because the litter gets into those cavities and stuff. It's really a bad thing. So we are hoping to be able to ban that. Vice Chair Delegate Jocelyn Pena-Melnick and I are working with some wonderful advocates on helping to address the shortages that we have. We don't have enough doctors or physician's assistants or teachers' aides or something, and it may be that they are not yet citizens, but they have the education, they have the certification. We want them to get licenses so they can join our workforce, support their family, and so we are bringing that. Delegate Polakovich-Carr referenced cannabis, and I have been working with Montgomery County's drug recognition expert and a Republican Senate colleague on DUID, driving under the influence of drugs. So we have tests, roadside tests for alcohol. We also have them for cannabis, cocaine, methamphetamines, and others. And we want to start to bring that. I think if we might be legalizing cannabis for recreational use, we want to make sure that we are not bringing stoned drivers onto our roadways to hurt them and others. For over a year now, I've had a podcast, Kibitzing with Kagan, our brief chats with people I find fascinating. So check those out on my YouTube channel. I have interviewed everyone from the Senate president to our chief of police, the superintendent of schools, the head of Manna Food Pantry, Historic Preservation, Peerless Rockville, so many, the mayor of Gaithersburg, so many more, and our two newest Gaithersburg council member, Lisa Henderson and Jim McNulty. So just a broader range of folks. So check that out. And my website, thanks to my staff and a constituent who's really good at this stuff, my website has been totally overdone. It needed a refresh. It's really pretty snazzy. So check out CherylKagan.org when you get a sec. Delegate Blokovich-Carr and I give out tens of thousands of dollars in senatorial scholarships. It is too late now to apply for the spring, but about April or so, you should please watch my tweets, watch in my blast emails, watch on my Senator Cheryl Kagan Facebook page, but we will have the link, and please make sure that folks apply. We do our processes differently, but I think both our websites have the information. For me, it's an application, it's a couple of essays, and if you're a finalist, you get to have a brief online interview with my wonderful volunteer senatorial scholarship selection committee. And then again, we give out a lot of money. And that's it. So with that, I thank you. And now I need to stop sharing screen. Stop share. Okay. And with that, we are here to take questions. I think I have recognized all our elected officials. Abby, do you want to curate the questions, or how should we do this? If you all want to put your hands up now, if you go into reactions at the bottom part, it says raise hand. If you can raise hand and we can call on you, or you can put your questions in the chat. I will mention that I got emails, and I know all of us have, about the plan to widen 270 and start adding pricey tolls. So let's see, is Sally, Janet, are you in the room, or Sally? Let's start with that question.
Janet did ask a question in the chat, Senator.
Okay, do you want to read the question, or Janet, do you want to ask it out loud?
Janet, feel free.
And just, you may unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. My question, we know the toll lane plan is going to hurt all of District 17. More and more evidence is coming out. We have documentation to show all of the harm it will do. We'll have sky-high tolls, increased congestion, decreased safety, worsening bottlenecks, especially at I-370. This is going to be particularly difficult for everyone who is heading north on 270. There is no plan to do anything beyond I-370. You may not have a direct vote on the project. I know you don't in District 17, but you can use the power and influence of your positions and your bully pulpit to shine a bright light on all the harm that's going to be done. What is our delegation going to do to try and protect District 17 from this disastrous P3 project?
Yeah, let me begin by saying that, like all four of us, I have not supported this project as it was configured, and I don't support it in the manner in which it's going forward. However, no private property or business property is being taken. So that in Rockville or Gaithersburg, so that at least is a positive thing. I share your concern with respect to the mathematics of this project. I'm not a big fan of P3 arrangements. I don't like signing contracts for 50 years. The only contract that I contemplate and wanting to be involved in for that length is my marriage, and that's about it. And so far things are going really well, so that's a positive thing. But the fact of the matter is that it really is a gamble, and as time goes forward, we're going to have to put more of an emphasis on rail transport and transit. And while there are plans for comprehensive plans for transit as a part of this whole I-270 thing, I haven't gotten assurances that the buses will have yet. I haven't yet gotten assurances that the buses will have internet accessibility, or that there's any contemplation that we really consider rail transportation. Now, along with Senator Kagan, I'm supporting Westmore, but regardless, we have to have a Democratic governor, because we need to get serious about transit transportation in the state of Maryland, because there is a limit to the number of lanes you can build, physical limit, and that's what has to inform our policymaking in the future.
I'm just going to remind everyone, both the question askers and my friends and colleagues who are answering, let's try to avoid acronyms to make sure that everyone knows what's being asked. I think for the most part, let's try to only have one or one and two. Julie, Kumar, do you need to add anything on that? Are you good, or can we go to other questions?
Good.
Okay. All right. And Janet, I just want to thank you and Sally and everyone who has been such council member Mark Pershela, everyone who has been such tremendous advocates. I will just add 2 seconds that when before I voted for our new treasurer delegate, former delegate, now treasurer Derek Davis, I talked to him about this issue specifically and made sure that he understood our concerns and would follow Nancy Kopp, Treasurer Nancy Kopp, in expressing concerns and opposition to this plan. Robin Yesno, welcome. You have the floor. You may unmute yourself.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Senator Kagan, Chairman Barbe, Delegate Gilchrist, and Delegate Palkovich-Carr for, sounds like some fantastic legislation, and appreciate everything that you're doing. What's on my mind, especially right now, is the protection of people who are in mental health crises. I am on a committee with the National Alliance of Mental Illness, NAMI, Montgomery County, and there are a couple of pieces of legislation that are being discussed right now, none in the committees in which you sit, that I wanted to bring to your attention and perhaps get comment on. One is being introduced by Delegate Charkoudian and Senator Augustine, that will, and Senator Kagan, I specifically was thinking of you on this, because it will require 911 points of contact to specifically think through the protocols when someone with a mental health crisis or their loved one calls in, because too often, much too often, we are seeing those people being shot or walking away in handcuffs because the first responder are members of the police. So that is, yeah. Would you like to respond?
So thank you, Robin. So let's try to, I'm just looking at the time, and I have a lot of questions in the chat, all this stuff. So I'll start on that one. And so I have worked with Delegate Charkoudian and with Senator Augustine on this bill through my leadership of 911. I hope you all know about 988, which is going to be a mental health suicide prevention hotline. The problem is that it was an unfunded mandate coming down from Congress, and virtually no state is ready to go. I recently had a Zoom meeting a couple of weeks ago now with the national head of 988. It's kind of a hot mess right now. There's not the money, there's not the source of money, there's not the staffing, and yet it's vitally important. So I did help Delegate Charkoudian with the drafting of the bill, and will continue to be engaged. And thank you for your leadership on this. It's super important, even without the extra stress of COVID. Certainly mental health is a huge issue.
Thank you.
Jim, Julie, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I'll just say the legislative services staff, they wrote up a whole report on the increase in the behavioral health issue. And we know there's a lot to do. COVID, that's one thing that COVID has increased, or was increasing anyway. Another thing that COVID's increased is opioid addiction. We'd been making some progress on that. And then when COVID hit, we lost all the progress. Sort of like some of the progress we've been making on transportation safety. When COVID hit, people started learning bad habits again.
Mm.
But behavioral health and mental health is definitely, something we had been gaining on, but now we're falling back because of COVID.
Yes, yes. Simon Chief, welcome.
Hi, my name is Simon Chief. I'm the Vice President of Government Relations for Fearless Student Employees, which is a group that represents the thousands of graduate employees of the University System of Maryland. We have a bill, SB 118, which will soon be cross-filed in the House, I believe on Monday, to legalize collective bargaining rights for graduate students, to deal with some of the things like family leave, that have been talked about here. And I'm just wondering, especially from Senator Kagan, whether that's something that you are in favor of.
Thank you, Simon. You didn't mention who's sponsoring the Senate bill?
Senator Kramer is the sponsor.
Got it. Okay. I have not read the bill, and I tend to be reluctant to pledge anything without having read it and understanding the fiscal impact. I can tell you that when it came to collective bargaining for community college professors, I was a co-sponsor every single year, big supporter. I taught at Montgomery College for a few semesters, and we got paid a microscopic amount of money for countless hours, kind of like being a senator or a delegate. So I appreciate your flagging it for me. I will definitely look into it because I'm interested. So thank you. Feel free to follow up with me. Thank you. Joe Vogel, your hand is up.
I'm
next.
sorry, Cheryl. I just wanted to jump in on that question and say thank you for raising that issue. So actually, I'm a scientist by training, and on my years working in science policy at the federal level, this was something that we very much were monitoring at the nonprofit that I worked at. I'm glad to hear that there's legislation on this year. Look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, ditto. I've always supported efforts, as the senator mentioned, with respect to collective bargaining in the university and community college setting.
Joe Vogel, please.
Yes, I'm asking a question in my capacity as a gun violence prevention activist. We saw what happened at Magruder High School the other day, the devastating shooting. Someone's in critical condition right now. And it was revealed recently that a ghost gun was used. I'm wondering how you all will lead to make sure that we get the ghost gun ban across the finish line this session in Annapolis.
Okay. Who wants to lead off with that?
So I believe Senator Susan Lee and Delegate Leslie Lopez are the bill sponsors for this year. Attorney General Brian Frosch is very actively backing the legislation this year as well. From what I've heard behind the scenes, it seemed like this might be the year that it gets across the finish line. I believe on the House side that this had been a priority bill for a couple of sessions so far this year. And the three of us on the House side were supportive there. And I apologize, I just can't recall what happened on the Senate side. If anyone else wants to jump in.
Yeah, and I would only emphasize again that it's last year in a 4-year term. We have to do this soon so that if the governor vetoes it, we'll have an opportunity to override before the next election.
And Joe, you know my background as a lobbyist with Jim and Sarah Brady that helped to pass the Brady bill, the waiting period, and the assault weapons ban. I have a very long track record of support for reasonable gun control and keeping our neighborhoods and our schools safe. So thank you for your leadership and all you're doing on the issue. Yasmin, I need your last name, please, and then you may begin.
My last name is Riazuddin. Hi, hello everyone. I'm calling. The reason for my question. The question is for accessibility for students with disabilities. Because of the COVID situation, a lot of classes have started doing virtual classes, or they are using platforms that are not accessible to the students with disabilities. And we want to make sure that students with disabilities can use the technologies, the platforms, the teaching platforms that the schools are using. They're accessible. It means, it's a battle every year. 30 years ago, the Maryland legislature passed the bill on Braille. So the teachers could teach Braille to the kids. 10 years ago, we the National Federation of the Blind introduced the bill for the Braille standards. So the students will have some Braille rather than not having any Braille. But now we need to focus on technology, and it's a battle with every time, the teacher says, especially with science and math classes, and students with disabilities are not able to complete the assignments, and they're failing in that sense. So we need to do something about that. And I hope somebody can answer this question.
Thank you, Yasmin. Do you know if there is state legislation, or would this be school board or county? It wasn't clear from your comments.
Senator Zucker is in the Senate, who is introducing the bill. It's Accountability Act for Accessibility for students K through 12.
Thank you.
And
okay.
Delegate Guyton is the House sponsor.
Got it. Okay. Kumar, did you want to speak to that?
I just wanted to say that it's always a great pleasure to see you and meet with you during session. Last year, you weren't able to make it because of COVID, but hopefully soon I'll get to see you and your compatriots come in to visit us and talk to us on these important issues. In the meantime, all four of us will pay attention to those two bills that you mentioned.
Thank you.
We are coming this week virtually.
Okay.
Right.
Yasmin visits me just about every year in Annapolis or on Zoom, and she tells me what letter I have to sign, and she tells me what bills I must co-sponsor. We used to have offices across the way at Department of Health for the county, and one of the things that I've learned from Yasmin and her organization is that Spain, when they passed their national gaming program, the money from that goes to support the blind and accessibility for the blind. It's really one of the amazing stories.
Oh.
It looks like Jamil Hernandez might have a question. Wonderful Jamil, who ran a hard-fought race for the city council in Gaithersburg. Glad you're here. Yeah, you're muted though. You must be double muted, double unmute.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Welcome.
Hello, Senator. Thank you. Just a quick heads up and question. I received a notice of UI benefits that
unemployment insurance.
Yeah, unemployment, which I never applied for. And so I called and I got ping-ponged around the different people. And I called all their friends and they had
no. Yeah.
Similar issues. Just something to keep in mind that's happened to, somebody took benefits under my name. So heads up for your legislation or anything. It's not been great working with some of the states on this.
Thank you, Jamil. You are not the only one in this room that has mentioned that to me. So if you get notification about your unemployment insurance benefits, your unemployment benefits that you never sought because you're not unemployed, please contact my office. We can shut that down. You might have been hacked. There might have been fraud. We want to make sure we protect you. And Abby Snyder in my office, again, the one with the magic wand on these things, you definitely want to reach out to us. Don't wait a day. Email us. We have a form on my website, cherylkagan.org, and we will get on it right away to make sure that you're not a victim of ID theft or anything else. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, and I'll just put in a plug. Any of our offices are happy to help with any issues, whether it's this or anything else with unemployment.
Totally. All right. I don't know if I mentioned the former council member Yvette Monroe from Gaithersburg is here. Good to see you, Yvette. I don't see hands up, but there were other questions in the chat. Here we go, Zola Shah. Okay, we're just going to have another couple minutes, guys, and then we will start to wrap up. So Zola Shah, welcome. You may begin.
Thank you, Senator. I have a quick question. If Maryland legalizes cannabis, what efforts are happening to ensure that there is equity in terms of distributing licenses to businesses and entrepreneurs that are from marginalized communities? Most of these communities have been hard hit from the war on drugs. And also, what efforts are being done to expunge records from cannabis?
So I will
thank you,
start,
Zola.
and then it looks like, oh, go ahead, Julie, you want to start? Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Zola, for raising those issues. So the House work group that is working towards perhaps the ballot question has been taking up those issues. We know that that was a legitimate and big concern in terms of medical cannabis and how those licenses rolled out in the state. So we want to make sure we get it right this time. On the expungement piece, that's actually something that I've been working on. Actually, this last session, I had legislation that relates to consumer reports. And now that's not directly about cannabis legalization. Kind of the dirty secret is that court records can get expunged on the state side, but there are literally hundreds of companies where this data lives on in perpetuity. So if they aren't cleaning up their databases, those records are still out there and getting used against people when they are applying for a job or a loan or an apartment. So I've been working to flag that with colleagues who are serving on that work group and who are on the committee of jurisdiction. We want to make sure we get this right so that on the one hand, there is an easy way for people who have prior convictions to get their records expunged or sealed, easily and without cost to them. On the other hand, we also need to make sure that the private companies that have access to this data are also cleaning up their databases. And sorry, Cheryl, for interrupting before.
No, you're good. So Zola, thank you for the question. Thank you for your advocacy. It is not as easy as flipping a switch, and the House and Senate do have different ideas as to the next steps. I think I saw something in the chat about whether you're for the question being on the ballot this fall or not. Mostly, and I would think I can speak for all four of us, that mostly that's decided above our pay grade. The Speaker and the President have ideas about that, and I think those ideas, as Julie said earlier, are different. But it is a multi-factor, multi-issue dynamic going on. So in addition to equity, which you mentioned, which is totally important, there are issues around banking and taxation. I mentioned drugged driving. There are a lot of issues that we have to figure out to make sure that we do it right in Maryland, because other places it has not worked very well. Carl Van Nest, welcome.
Thank you. On January 5th, the Maryland Reporter had an article in it that said that Maryland was ranked 46th in terms of business climate, friendliness of business climate. What actions will you be taking to, make us more friendly to businesses in the state? Thank you.
Let me just offer an opinion here. I've been in the private sector my entire life. And I have been in the management of several businesses during that time. And I've personally always found Maryland to be a very reasonable place to do business. I've never had trouble making money in this state. And I think there are a lot of businesses who can agree with me on that. Maryland has always ranked high or low depending upon who does the ranking. Typically, organizations that rank for businesses that have high skill sets, bio, information technology, generally speaking, they have found that Maryland is a good place because of the high levels of education in our state. If some people rank it purely on tax policy, yeah, Maryland's taxes are higher than most states, but we also have a top 5 public school system as well for all that money that we spend. And so, speaking as a businessman myself, I think Maryland's a great place to do business. I've never had trouble making money here. Of course, there have been many instances in my committee where people have tried to create opportunities to expand lawsuits, and I've never been a big fan of that. And I've always believed that public policy should be decided in the legislature and not in a courtroom. And so, at least for my little segment of the universe, that's how I intend to both promote sound public policy and at the same time protect legitimate business people in our state.
So Carl, I'm going to tell you, I have 2 procurement bills this year. Governor Hogan talks about Maryland being open for business, but the procurement process is pretty terrible, actually. And The comptroller has not done a good job at improving that. So I am doing two bills. So one of them, we have a Prompt Payment Act, but it only applies to small businesses. And so I have a bill that I have over half the Senate as co-sponsors. I hope to drop it either tomorrow or Tuesday. And that would make it apply to nonprofits as well, because if they're not paid back, they can't do the work, they can't get the money that is needed. And so that's critically important. The other thing is transparency. And I will tell you, it's a hot mess. If you have done work for the state of Maryland and you are waiting to get paid, you can't get someone on the phone, you can't find out the status of your payment, it's terrible. So I learned about this directly from my 911 work, and I know I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but there was a director of a 911 county who called me on my cell on behalf of a vendor who had been waiting for more than 6 months to get paid for their work. So I called the comptroller's chief of staff on his cell phone, and the check got mailed the next day, or the transfer got done the next day. But a 911 director should not be taking time out from his or her life-saving work to call a senator on her cell phone who happens to be able to reach out. I mean, that's all nuts. So if we're really going to be open for business, we have got to be accessible. We've got to welcome and support our small businesses and our nonprofits. I was a founding member of Maryland's Small Business Caucus, and I made sure that nonprofits is part of our agenda, but we have got to make sure that folks are supported, engaged, and all that. I will say one more thing, which was a bill that I passed 2 years ago, the MEGA Council, the Maryland Efficiency and Grants applications. We want folks to be able to spend their time working on their missions, on their businesses, on the differences they make in the community, and not filling out paperwork. And so, so we're continuing to engage on that, and that is going to end up being very effective in making a difference. So all of that is going to be good.
I was just thinking of something having to do with my committee, Carl. I have always been not a big fan of giving monopolies in cannabis. I think any certified, farmer in good standing should be able to grow any crop that he or she wants to, because I believe in a free market in these things. And so if we do legalize cannabis, I would hope that we would allow any farmer who is properly insured and doesn't have a criminal background to be able to grow, just as they do with soybeans and wheat.
So with that, I figure an hour and a quarter is about right. And so I want to start to wrap us up. So going in reverse order, Delegate Polakovich-Carr, any final brief words you want to share?
Well, just thanks everyone for being here tonight. If you have questions, concerns, want to share thoughts, whatever on any legislation that's going on, feel free. Email, I would say, is probably the best way to reach each of us.
Great.
And look forward to engaging with all of you as session goes on.
Thank you. Delegate Gilchrist, brief wrap-ups?
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. It's so good to see everyone here. I see, from Rockville and Gaithersburg, and the local Democratic Party and the chamber, and everyone who's here. So thank you so much. I look forward to continuing to work with you, and everybody have a good night.
And Delegate Barbay. You are muted, Kumar.
Muted. The best way to get in touch with me is my hyper complicated email address, kumarbarbe@gmail.com. Literally my first and last name with no dots or dashes at gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you.
That's great. All right. Well, I'm going to close this up very briefly. I was super inspired, as I referenced, by the Gaithersburg elections last year. There were smart, effective candidates who engaged in a respectful way, and voter turnout was extraordinary. I hope that we can expect that for our June Democratic primary, because we have got to make sure that we are successful in November. We are going to have some slightly new congressional and legislative districts, as has been referenced. But I encourage you, we're getting a new governor. We're getting a new attorney general after Brian Frosch's truly heroic leadership. We're getting a new comptroller. And again, I will just mention that all four of us have endorsed Brooke Learman for your consideration. We're getting at least one new legislator. And I always believe that all of us are on the ballot every time. And so you could elect 4 new legislators if you don't think we're doing the right job. But we're getting a new sheriff. We're getting, there's just going to be a lot of new change. And so please make sure that you do your homework, do your research, support the candidates in any way you can, from social media to volunteering to donating, whatever you can. It all makes a difference. And obviously, the most important thing you must do is vote, and make sure that everyone you know votes. And I think the last thing I'm going to mention is just, I appreciate how respectful the questions were and your engagement and all that, but we have had too much hatred and anti-Semitism and bullying and trolls, and it's just, so it's nice that we can all connect that way, in a respectful way. And let's speak out whenever we learn of hate or bias, because we've got to work together and stand as Democrats for equity, equality, opportunity, and the future of our environment, our schools, our kids, our economic development, and all that. So with that, thank you all very, very much. If you really want to watch this again, you can watch it on YouTube, and we'll be sharing the links and stuff. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
I want to save the chat, which I have not done before.
You can
Does
also
that work?
stop the live stream.
Abby, you want to help me before I end this thing?
Why don't you end the live stream first? Bye, delegate. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Good night, Sally.
Good night.
Good to
Thank
see
you. Thank you.